Chapter 2. Selling as a Business. I. And login camps the cook shouts, "Come and get it." In the army the bugler sounds mass call. In either case a horde of hungry men come running for their meals. In business it would be simple if a manufacturer or a merchant could bring all his customers within earshot, shout, "Come and get it," and be rushed by a crowd of customers eager to buy his product. However, as we all know, people are not that anxious to buy. They must be educated, persuaded, and shown how and what to buy. That is the job of salesmen and saleswomen. There is always a demand for people who can sell. Salesmanship draws its manpower from every other profession and trade. Lawyers have closed their law books and turned to selling. Some have grown rich. Surgeons have put aside their white coats and become salesmen. Bankers, grown tired of sitting on tall stools or behind fancy desks, have thrown up their jobs and turned to the more satisfying job of selling. Farmers have walked away from their plows to take up salesmanship. Men from machine shops, from schools, churches, stores and offices have sought the greater freedom and wider opportunities for profit offered by a career in salesmanship. There are many reasons why so many men desert other types of work to take up salesmanship. One of the first reasons is that you can write your own ticket when you become a salesman. You do not have to wait until the boss gets ready to grant you a raise. A good salesman can give himself a raise in pay almost any time. You do not have to work long, dreary hours, Sundays and holidays as the druggist, the restaurant owner or the garage employee must. In selling you are almost entirely your own boss. You set your own rate of pay and, like the captain of a ship at sea, you rely on your own judgment and ability. There are many other things that go to make selling real fun. You meet the community's most successful, most interesting and influential people. You are in constant touch with what's going on in the world, and you are laying the foundation for success and increasingly bigger paychecks. There is almost no other man who is so thoroughly independent and secure as the salesman who has built up the confidence and friendship of a group of customers. A merchant may suffer fire losses that will wreck his business, or he may make mistakes in buying that will shatter his profits for an entire season. A surgeon may lose the delicate skill of his hands as he grows older. And the loss of one important case may send a lawyer straight down the path to obscurity. A farmer may lose an entire season's work in one heavy downpour of rain, or an overflow of the creek or river. But no fire can burn, no flood destroy, no thief can steal a salesman's stock in trade, which is, as you know, the confidence and friendship of his customers. Of course, there can be no doubt that most men take up selling to earn money. But there are other satisfactions and compensations in addition to the money earned. In 1928, a salesman almost jammed a life insurance policy down the throat of a certain New York newspaperman. The policy had an accident and sickness clause which paid $100 a month in the event of illness and disability. When he signed the application and paid the premium, he was in the best of health. Less than 2 years later, he was in a hospital drawing $100 a month compensation. Was he grateful to that insurance salesman? You know he was. Had it not been for the salesman's insistence, he would have suffered the loss of 10 months' earnings, and there would have been no funds to pay the heavy hospital expenses. Yet it seemed to the buyer when he took that insurance that he was doing the salesman a favor. As it turned out, the salesman did the newspaper man a favor for which he has been grateful ever since. A salesman who sold a radio receiver some time ago to an old lady who is crippled and confined to her home said that he wondered if he had done the right thing. It was an expensive set and she was dependent on a very small income. I thought perhaps I ought not to have sold her, because it was obvious that her home needed repairs and painting. But as she made the payments, I realized that the radio set had brought the world right to her armchair. She has since told me that her radio receiver, next to her husband and children, has been the greatest joy in her life. There are literally millions of people who owe much of their happiness to salesmen. Think of the people who might never have owned a home if some real estate salesman hadn't pushed them over. Think of the thousands of mothers whose lives have been made easier by some salesman who sold them a washing machine, a vacuum cleaner, or an ironing machine. There is a president of a big advertising agency in New York who traces his upward rise back to the time when a salesman sold him a correspondence course in advertising. Numberless cases could be pointed out where salesmen, through their ability to educate, to persuade, and to induce people to act, have brought new prosperity, happiness, and satisfaction into the lives of millions of people. That's why it is so much fun to sell things. Qualifications of a good salesman. One of the best salesmen in his field was a big, blond fellow who was a great handshaker and backslapper. He never missed an opportunity to make a friend or to push himself forward to meet the right people. He joined all kinds of lodges and clubs. He wore pink shirts, too. He was a typical salesman, the kind we read about. And he was a big success. Another top-notch salesman was a fellow who was totally unlike the first man. He never slapped any backs. He was quite reserved and almost diffident in his relations with people. But he could sell. When he sold an order, he made a customer, and often a lifelong friend. These two men are mentioned to emphasize the idea that you don't have to be an expert storyteller, a greenhound, or a great handshaker to be a good salesman. There are thousands of good salesmen who never take a drink of hard liquor. There are other thousands who are quite unassuming, modest. Fellows who do not feel the necessity of joining a lot of clubs or lodges or painting the town red. It isn't even necessary for a man to have the gift of gab to be a successful salesman. Experience has proved that more salesmen have become failures from talking too much than from too little. Because a man doesn't have to be a good mixer, in the usual sense of the word, don't jump to the conclusion that a miser can be a good salesman. But there is a whole world of middle ground between being a mixer and a miser. If you enjoy meeting people, if you are not scared in the event a man becomes a little gruff and grouchy with you, if you are not afraid of hard work and study, and if you have a grim determination to succeed, you have most of the important qualifications of a good salesman. Of course, if you are imaginative, can see the inherent value in a proposition quickly, if you have the knack of explaining values in interesting and forceful terms, if you have any natural qualities of leadership, so much the better. But, important as these qualities may be, many men who have them in only the smallest degree succeed in selling. You may ask what is meant by natural qualities of leadership. Were you ever the captain of a sandlot or high school baseball team? Are you invariably appointed to some office in any little group, lodge, association, or club you join? Do people gravitate toward you and go out of their way to see you or please you? If these things are true, you are a natural leader and there is no better way to capitalize your inherent abilities than in a career as a salesman. But if you like to be alone, if you would rather read about a football game than go to one and yell your head off, if you would rather sit by the fire of a winter's night and read a good book than go to a party, perhaps you had better not try selling unless you are willing to fight hard to overcome your natural inclinations. To add one word of caution, don't pay too much attention to what your friends tell you. Many a potentially good salesman has been ruined by the well-meant but mistaken advice of wives, friends, mothers, or school teachers. After all, it is up to each man to decide for himself what he wants to do, whether it is running a retail store, building up a manufacturing business, farming, selling, or anything else. You know in your own mind whether you want to sell or not. Once you have made up your mind, go ahead. If you are the sort of person who is constantly swayed back and forth in your opinions and your desires by the advice of friends, then perhaps you had better not try to be a salesman. Getting the name on the order blank. When you begin to sell, you are almost sure to find nearly everyone will promise you some business. You will be told, I will keep you in mind, or I will let you know when I need anything. People really mean these pleasantries when they say them to you, but they seldom bother to remember them after a salesman is out of sight. You must learn, and learn quickly, too, that a promised order pays no commissions, turns no factory wheels. The ability to close sales without a long, drawn-out series of callbacks is the greatest asset a salesman can have. Without this ability, you are just a solicitor, not a salesman. There is an old saying, anybody can solicit business, but it takes a salesman to close orders. The first thing to remember in closing a sale is that most people need a little pushing to bring them to a decision. The natural inclination of every prospect is to put off buying as long as possible. Even a woman, a few days before Easter, will want to put off buying a hat or a new outfit until she has seen what every store in town has to offer. Yet she wants that new hat or dress as badly as she ever wanted anything. She would be heartbroken if she knew she couldn't have it. But she wants to wait and see if she can't find something she likes a little better. Keeping this human trait uppermost in your minds as salesmen, you can understand the necessity of persistence and pressure in helping people to make up their minds. Take the case of a man buying a new automobile. He may have decided to buy a Ford, a Chevrolet, or a Plymouth. But which one? All three cars are presented to him in the most favorable manner. He is a bit confused. Each car has certain special features which appeal to him. The salesman's job is to bring him to the point of deciding. There are definite methods of doing this. For example, one salesman may say, "Mr. Prospect, if you will just check your preferences as to color, tires, and body style, I'll put your order through so you can drive this car next Sunday." See how this salesman has simplified the prospect's problem of making a decision. See how much better this attempt at closing is. Then think it over. And let me know what kind of tires and wheels you want. The washing machine salesman may say, "Mrs. Jones, if you will sign this memorandum, you can have this machine in your basement by Monday and finish your washing long before noon, leaving you free from worry and work all Monday afternoon." In closing an order, make everything as simple as possible and get the prospect to take some first, easy steps toward signing. A typewriter salesman had the president of a large company convinced that his machine was right. But there were some 25 old machines to be listed for trade-in and a contract to be drawn. The salesman saw that the president, who was accustomed to okaying memoranda which had been prepared for him, was busy. Had he waited for the president to ask someone to list all the old typewriters to be traded in and to draw up the contract, he would never have obtained the order. The salesman went out of the president's office, tore off a sheet of wrapping paper. On it he listed the serial numbers of all machines which were to be traded in. Under the list he wrote, $21 allowance on these machines. Back into the president's office went the salesman. He showed the president the memorandum and said, "Just okay this and I will have your purchasing agent prepare the order." The president scribbled his initials and his OK in a jiffy. Later, the salesman went to the purchasing agent who prepared a formal purchase order for the 25 new typewriters. The salesman had made the job of buying as simple as possible. At the first sign of agreement on the part of the prospect, the wise salesman asks for the order. If he can't close at this point, he goes right on, explaining, even in some cases, repeating things he has said before. Then he asks for the order again. More men make the mistake of asking for the order too late than too soon. Remember this point when selling, ask for the order 5 times before you give up. Very often a prospect will spar and find by saying he will check his stock and let you know. Or he will tell you that he will find out what color, or what size, or what quantity is needed. Here is where the salesman shows whether he is really an order getter or just a solicitor. If he is really a salesman, he'll say, "That's fine, MR prospect, just okay this order with the color, or size or quantity, left blank and I will have your clerk, assistant bookkeeper, or secretary fill in the details." Not long before this was written, a salesman was trying to sell a landlord a Kelvinator electric refrigerator. 2 other refrigerator salesmen were after the order too. The landlord couldn't make up his mind, so he said he would talk to the tenant and find out what make the tenant preferred the Kelvinator. Salesman went straight to the tenant and explained all the good points of Kelvinators. The other 2 salesmen waited a day or two and then came back. "Sorry, but I bought a Kelvinator," said the landlord when they approached him. The Kelvinator salesman had cinched the order by seeing the tenant and then going right back to the landlord and saying, "Your tenant will be delighted with a Kelvinator, because I have just seen him and told him all about it."